It's Houston's Morning News, and we are joined by a rock star, none other than Karl Rove. Mr. Rove, welcome to Houston's Morning News. What a privilege it is to have you on this morning.
Well, thanks for having me.
Let me start, Karl, with a discussion that we've been having. Should the President Obama, stick his nose into the business of the state of Texas, where he's asking the Supreme Court to possibly stop an execution tomorrow? Are you familiar with this story?
A little bit. Look, the president seems to have Texas in his gun sights. There are environmental rules, for example, where he is exempting Louisiana and Florida, but imposing those rules in Texas. We already had earlier a situation in which the EPA granted a waiver to Oregon that they denied to Texas, even though the circumstances were the same. And then we have, of course, this absurd thing going on out in West Texas where out of nowhere the Environmental Protection Agency and environmental groups are attempting, with the administration's encouragement, to give endangered species status to a lizard that would the result of that action would be to shut down oil production in the Permian Basin.
Now, do you believe that it is because he fears that Rick Perry's going to throw his hat into the ring, run for president, and he'll crush him if he does?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. I think it's ideological in nature. That is to say, he's a liberal and he knows this is a conservative state. I think some of it has to do with sort of his pet peeves. We're an energy-producing state, and he somehow or another wants us to power the country by solar and wind and biomass and get rid of these nasty hydrocarbons. But yeah, I think part of it is the political calculation. We're a red state and didn't vote for him last time, unlikely to vote for him this time, and anything he can do to sort of rein us in, he'll do it.
Karl Rove joining us here this morning. Let's talk just a little bit about Obama's performance rating. Scott Rasmussen on earlier. His recent poll says this week that a generic Republican would tie with the president right now, 44%, 44% if we were to hold the election right now. Does that bode well, do you feel, for the Republicans running in the race at this point?
Yeah, it does. I mean, anytime you can get the incumbent president of the United States a year and a half before the election to be either within spitting distance of a generic Republican, Scott's poll shows him tied. Other polls have shown the generic Republican ahead. But even if the generic Republican were 3 or 4 points behind, that says something. I mean, you're taking nobody who's only got one thing behind their name, an R, and matching them up against President Obama. I'm also intrigued by these national polls that showed President Obama beating, for example, Tim Pawlenty 50-44. Well, nobody knows who Tim Pawlenty is.
Right.
And the president can't get himself above 50%.
And it's interesting because each week that seems to change a little back and forth, but there's no question that the president can be beaten. I mean, he can be defeated. I want to run some names by you, Karl. I want to get your thoughts on some names and talk a little bit about the discussion of the debt ceiling. So I'm going to hold you over here just a little bit. Would you mind hanging on for us?
Oh, happy to.
All right, excellent. We got a lot of questions. Political superstar, rock star Karl Rove joining us here this morning. So let me throw some names at you, sir, and give me your thoughts, if you would, real quick. Let's start with Mitt Romney.
Well, look, every candidate for president has got strengths and weaknesses. His is that he has been the governor of a purple state. He's got an extraordinary business background. He is clearly the Republican frontrunner, having been around the track once before and leading in the polls. But he's not the traditional frontrunner because he's not way out in front. And his challenge is going to be Massachusetts health care,
right,
and how he bridges that. So far, he's relied upon a 10th Amendment defense, saying, look, Massachusetts under our Constitution has a right to be a laboratory of democracy and try something, but President Obama's fix for the country as a whole is unworkable, unsustainable, and will bankrupt the country. So we'll see how well that works out over time.
All right, let me ask you about Tim Pawlenty. You brought him up earlier. Has he got a shot at this point?
Sure, he does. Look, these national polls give us some indication of the relative strength of the best-known characters, and they give us a sense of like who's got momentum because of something that they've said or done recently. But I would remind you that, for example, in 1999, at this point, John McCain was 3 percentage points in the polls nationally. And yet, as you know, he came very close. He won New Hampshire and came very close to sneaking the nomination in 2000.
Rick Perry, does he get in the race?
I think he does. I mean, he's governor of a big state, and he seems to be making all the noises, and his people are out there scouting up talent, and he's got a schedule that, he's going to go speak in, places like, South Carolina and Michigan, and have a big come out with a big national event in Houston on August 6th. That's not the kind of thing that you would do if you weren't very interested in running.
All right, I'm going to talk about the two ladies, one in, one not in. Michelle Bachmann is in the race. Your thoughts on her, and does that preclude Sarah Palin from getting in later on?
Well, let me answer the second one first. No, it doesn't. I mean, this is a big enough, field, and things are so unsettled that everybody's got a shot. If they want to jump in, they can jump in. I know Michelle. I campaigned for her in 2006 in her first race for the House. She got a lot of energy, a lot of pizzazz, knows how to play the media. The problem is that the last time we had somebody go directly from the U.S. House to the White House was 1880, and it's hard for you as a junior member in the House to build a record of achievement and accomplishment that causes people to say, yeah, I can see you in the Oval Office. And that's going to be her challenge, is to say, here's why you can have confidence I'm up to the job.
Before I let you go, I would be remiss if I did not ask you, who do you like? You got a favorite at this point?
No, I don't. In fact, I'm enjoying watching this from my perch at Fox and writing about it in the Wall Street Journal, but I'm focusing most of my time and energy on the political side, and as a volunteer into a group called American Crossroads and Crossroads GPS. We raised $72 million to help Republican candidates. Last year, our goal is to raise $120 million for the coming election cycle. We've just kicked off a $20 million ad campaign on the debt ceiling, saying it's time to take away President Obama's blank check. And I'm having a lot of fun with that, and as a result, I'm comfortable sitting on the sidelines cheering them on. I intend to support the nominee.
Karl Rove, it is a pleasure, as always, and a privilege to have you on Houston's Morning News. And we look forward to talking with you again as we get into 2012. It is going to be very, very interesting, and we need you out there, sir. I appreciate that.